We're back. How's it going? It's Adam and it was really creepy that. It's Adam and Sam again with your creepy morning news. Sam, do you want to do something a little bit creepy? Take the heat off me.
Just do some. Just. Where's that picture of me? Just the one where I'm like.
That's it. Do the hands like that. Come up to the camera. Come up. There you go. There you go. There's your GIF. Lovely stuff. Here's the headlines. Fox reportedly very upset with WWE over the signing of CM Punk. WWE making major changes, no longer scouting indie talent, and some big NXT stars wrestling dark matches before last night's SmackDown. Stay tuned. Kicking things off with a bit of a double story regarding both Brock Lesnar and the fact that Fox were very, very upset with WWE. So, this is from the Wrestling Observer. And Dave writes, for Lesnar, he showed up after Reigns had pinned John Cena to win the main event after a grueling match. His music played, he looked big, but didn't look as hard physically in the sense that he didn't look like he got major advanced notice of this. He's not been putting the hours in.
He's soft. Oh, Lesnar's not as hard as he used to be. He can only rip off 40 people's heads now.
A lot of people were saying, I love Lesnar's look at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe he wasn't so, he's still massive. I don't want to say he wasn't big. But apparently the reason for that is because, it really, really hadn't been planned. So, Fox were very, very upset that WWE didn't try to sign CM Punk. Punk has a positive relationship with Fox. Obviously, he did the backstage stuff, WWE backstage, and Fox, in fact, being one of the first to congratulate Punk on the big ratings that Rampage did on Friday night. But because WWE didn't make a major money play for Punk, they were peed off, and then WWE essentially fast-tracking Brock Lesnar here, getting him back sooner rather than later, just to get a few eyes back on their product. It certainly worked. I mean, tickets have been selling very, very well since the return of Lesnar and Lynch. But that's maybe the reason that it's. By the way, it sounds like every network is pissed off with WWE at the moment. USA pissed off because SmackDown's got Fox, all the stars,
and it's just. I don't even know, it very much feels like Fox were trying to help open that door a little bit more when we had backstage. That was very exciting when it was like, Punk's going to be watching WWE product and he's going to be talking about it, but it was like, well, he's going to get closer and closer to the company. Potentially one day he may return. And I'm sure that Fox maybe had that grand, dream in mind. But it very much feels like, they wanted the CM Punk figure for their birthday. WWE left it till the day, went to Toys R Us, and there was only Brock. And it's kind of... They are going to get, that exchange from Brock. They are going to get some people brought back into it, especially if they make it interesting and intriguing, because Brock does attract a casual audience. And Brock in a face position is going to be, quite a unique situation because it's not happened in so long. But you've got a feel for Fox, but at the same time, I don't know what they expected, and they should have known that WWE's relationship with Punk was such that it as improbable as it was Punk would turn up to AEW at any point, it was maybe 10 times as improbable that he'd ever come back to WWE and wrestle in a ring.
Sure. I mean... They can't be upset with Brock at all. No. Brock's a huge star, and I'm really excited to see what Brock does. It's a different dynamic now.
On the point of what you were talking about there with the networks as well, I think that from what we were reporting the other day, it mainly seems that the real heat at the moment is stemming from the fact that SmackDown is very stacked. Raw is kind of not, but that's going to be addressed surely when we get to the draft. So
exactly, which isn't too far away. Sticking with CM Punk right now, AEW once saying they would never do business with CM Punk. What's the deal here?
So it's apparently well known that when Khan wanted to start AEW after being inspired by the business and his interest in Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho, and what that did for the wrestling world in Japan, the guys that he apparently wanted to build it around, according to Meltzer, if he could get it started, and there was no real actual talk it was going to happen, but when he was spitballing, he wanted Punk, Omega, the Young Bucks, and perhaps Jericho. But the talks with Punk went nowhere, and at one point, apparently both sides were bitter at the other, and it was even he was even told at one point that they would never ever do business with him. And he writes, "Never, of course, is a term you never say." The two then restarted talks for at least a year, and clearly had come to an agreement that far in advance, given the Chicago date at the United Center wasn't announced until a few weeks ago, and it was a totally rushed promotion.
Well, now it just feels like they're best buddies, don't they?
Yeah.
All handshakes and hugs after the presser.
Buying ice creams for an entire arena.
That's right, you got to buy one this
time for
around. $1,000. What?
Yeah, you don't see somebody try to sell the wrapper for $1,000 on eBay.
You having a laugh?
You can go to the shop and buy one.
Really? Well, you got to pay for one this time around. Or you got to stump up.
He ain't footing the bill anywhere but Chicago, it looks like.
But people will, because that takes us very, very nicely to our next story. CM Punk setting the AEW single event merchandise record at Rampage. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of the queues by the merch stands. It's bonkers. And apparently scalpers bought up a load of the shirts in the end anyway. Yeah. The actual fans didn't get a chance to do it. And then the website went down. You can get one now if you want one now. And so... apparently, the single event merchandise record over $200,000 dues.
That's insane, man.
Yeah, so it's huge for AEW standards. That's absolutely massive. I mean, and his shirt is still the biggest seller right now on Pro Wrestling Tees and AEW shop and all that, of course.
Yeah.
So. But you can get them. Apparently, they were going around buying up all the Ringer T-shirts in the United States. Basically,
it's something with the when we went to Double or Nothing, like the queues were obscene. Like when we were queuing to get into the actual arena itself, the queues for merch were coming all the way back towards the security checkpoint, like the metal detectors, and that was a good 25 meters plus 30 meters plus another corner, and then there was the stand. But, I mean, Punk is... They release any shirt, people are going to buy it. They release any figure, people are going to buy it. That's going to be probably one of the most pre-ordered wrestling figures in history, I imagine. And I imagine they're fast-tracking the absolute poo out of that as well. So, it's just...
You get a trading card now. First AEW trading card ever they've just released. Which I reckon would probably be worth a pretty penny.
Yeah.
It helps that it's a nice T-shirt, isn't it? It's a good-looking T-shirt.
That's it. And it doesn't stray too far from, the classic that everybody loves.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on, but sticking with AEW, according to a new report from The Observer once again, Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa to rekindle their AEW feud in early 2022. Bit of a wait on this one, but apparently the rematch will be built up for a major match in early 2022. So, I mean, they're two of the best going. I can't wait for it. I don't. There's not much more to add to that as far as I'm concerned.
It's one of those situations where, both talents incredible, both talents working together even better. This can only be good with an extra added time and build. And it could main event a show, I think. It could easily main event a show.
I mean, without doubt. That feels like a big title match to me, perhaps that indicates that Britt Baker is going to hold on to that gold for a little while, but I think we all expected that anyway. Back to WWE now, and they are no longer scouting indie talent. Several in the company have told the Wrestling Observer staff that the word from the top is no more independent talent as far as scouting. Obviously, again, no more. Take that with a massive scoop of salt, because this is wrestling. They are back to the feeling of scouting by looks, and not because guys have gotten over elsewhere, and teaching people with the right look to be wrestlers. I mean, it's worked in the past. It hasn't worked in the past. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. They are looking for the next big star. They're not interested in name value from bloody PWG or wherever.
But it certainly doesn't harm WWE to have somebody who is bigger than anybody else, somebody who is unbelievably handsome. Somebody if you've got the look and everything's right for TV, then they can train you from there. But at the same time, it's AJ Hazard. If we look at it from the standpoint of no more indie talent, I think that just can't be applied, because if somebody takes off in an indie scene, AEW and WWE both want them, they're gonna go and make offers, because there are situations. Remember, like Will Ospreay, Ricochet. when that was everywhere, like the entire opening exchanges of their match where they're going back and forward and the landing, that was just immediate boom. And if there's another situation like that, you can't say WWE aren't going to try and make an offer, but I just fear for the fact that we're now back to, he looks good, let's trade him, she looks good, let's trade her. It's getting sort of almost tail-end ruthless aggression-y when you get back to that.
Sure, I don't know. As I say, it's had mixed results in the past, but they are largely, and there are exceptions to the rule, they are largely failing to build new stars in the way that they would like, and so maybe a different strategy is required.
Yeah,
you're right, and if somebody had a load of hype behind them, I reckon WWE would still come.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but it's the way they've kind of always done it, haven't they? Where they curate the full gimmick. They sort of, as long as you turn up and you do your part, they kind of try and do everything else for you. And sometimes, if you just do everything they say, you can be John Cena if everything falls in place and you work. But
the saddest thing about this is we're not going to see any more pictures of William Regal scouting talent with his head through the curtain at indie shows.
Peak. Or just sat like ominously on a balcony with a light just above him, who's just bathed in shadow.
That's the saddest part of this whole thing. Finishing off, some big NXT stars wrestling before SmackDown. It's got people talking as to maybe they're on their way to the main roster. That tends to happen, of course. Or if you're Bronson Reed, you get the sack. So, fingers crossed this is a call-up. But NXTs are changing, so the roster might be changing too. First off, Cal Bloom, the son of Bo Beverly of the Beverly Brothers, defeating Austin Theory. Cal Bloom, very, very impressive. It's interesting with Austin Theory if he were to go up because he's involved with the way and all that going on.
He's kind of been a little bit distanced as well from everything he's been doing in NXT just a little bit recently. So the rumours definitely around Theory is starting to hot up that he is coming up to the main roster soon.
We've heard before that Vince fancies a bit of him. He quite likes the look of him. And understandably, good-looking lad. Very talented in the ring, that's for sure. Second up, Xia Li and Casey Catanzaro defeating Aliyah and Dakota Kai. Big names there. Yeah, especially Dakota. If they were to lose her, that would be a shame. She's involved.
Yeah, I'd heard that Xia Li and I believe Aliyah and Dakota Kai are all close from what I was reading as well. Just in and around this, I checked out a few articles, but apparently they're all close in terms of people in the know think that they're going to be fast tracked to the main roster sometime soon. But I mean, Xia Li, they really need that full package to come up with Xia Li, otherwise it's going to waste such a nice story and sort of everything that's building there and the atmosphere around it is fantastic. So fingers crossed if they bring up Xia Li, that all follows with her.
Just sort of wish I could hit fast forward on my life and see where NXT is at in 3 months' time, because I think it's going to be a totally different show.
Being able to just get, even if it's just a quick one Google, you can do one Google, but you can do it, you travel 30 years into the future and you can just go and quickly bang open WWE's Wikipedia page.
All right, if I could do that, Sam, it's not going to be to look at bloody NXT spoilers.
It's going to be
getting a lot of results. Porn of the future. Right. That's done. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Got some lovely content coming up, obviously. Stay tuned, etc., etc. Take care of yourself and enjoy the porn of the future.
Just have a good
what are we on?
Just have a good one, everybody.
Just have a good one. See you in a bit. All that.
Bye.